Hi friends, welcome to this online tutorial. In this tutorial, I want to illustrate to you how to make a fitted shirt collar. Now, this is my bodice block. In our earlier videos in the channel, we illustrated how to make a basic bodice block. Should you have any challenge in making a bodice block, or you want to understand how we came about this block, please just scroll down our channels. You see a video that takes care of that. Now, this is my front block and this is my back block. Now, this is the center front of my block. I went ahead to added this extra allowance to the center front block of my front block to illustrate something to you. Now, you know that the shirt, a shirt usually has the button wrap. Now, the button wrap allowance is dependent on the size of the button you want to use. You can use a 1-inch allowance for your button if they are the medium size button, and you can use the 1.5-inch allowance for a big size button. Now, I've gone ahead to divide this wrap allowance that I added here is about 3 inches. 3 inches allowance. Why am I adding 3 inches allowance? The first 1-inch allowance is for my button allowance. The second one here is for my interfacing, and the last is my facing. How do I mean? You see, usually this is how you go about it. You fold it by the 1 inch of it, the way I marked it. So I am folding this outer edge into this inner edge, and then I am folding the second one onto my center front. This is usually how the wrap allowance is. I hope you are getting it. This is usually how the wrap allowance. So this outer point saves. Why I included this, I usually include this one, is that it gives thickness to the wrap allowance, the button allowance. So that is how, when you finish sewing, this is how it will be. So I left this extra paper here without having to cut it, because if you cut it while it is like this, you will not have it properly shaped in. So what you do is that you fold the wrap allowance and leave it at how it should be when the dress is finished or the shirt is finished, before you now go ahead and continue the neck outline the way it is. I hope you are understanding me. So I am tracing now into my button allowance to follow the shape of the front. Okay, so that is eventually how my shirt will be when it is done. So you observe that this allowance here, is, let me see what I have here. I have about 1 inch and 1/8 of an inch for my button allowance. So I have to note that, because when I am drafting the collar, that is what I will use. It will be included in my collar when I'll be drafting. I hope we got that clear. Now, for the shirt, sometimes it is believed that you should alter the neckline of the shirt by about 0.25 for you to have an ease in the collar. It's actually optional, but should you want to do it, just go down from this part by 0.25 and connect it back into the neckline so that you have an ease in the block. Okay, now the next thing that is needed for you to do is to measure the size of your neckline. I hope you've seen what I've done. I had to align them in the shoulder like they would be once the shirt is finished. My front block is kept straight. It is not the one that is tilted. My front block is kept straight. It is the back that I tilt to align them at the shoulder line. So I'm going to tape that down to secure them in that position, and then I'll measure the size of my neckline. Okay, I have that secured. Let me use that to wedge that. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the size of my neckline, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now remember that my wrap allowance, the size of my wrap allowance in this case was 1 inch. If you can see, I believe you're seeing clearly, it is 1 inch with 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to note that my button wrap, my button allowance is equals to 1 and 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to keep that aside. Then I will measure from that wrap allowance the main neckline now. So I'm keeping my tape to follow the outline of the neckline. I'm measuring it all the way to the center back. I hope you're seeing how I'm following it. So what I have there is 8 3/4. 8 3/4 neck size equals to 8 3/4 of an inch. So this is what I have gotten now from this outline. So now I'm going to keep this aside. I'm going to keep this aside, and we will be working on this. I hope you understand that by measuring the neck this way, it is half the neck. So what I am getting here is half the neck size. So if I'm supposed to ask for the full neckline, if I want to, what I'm going to be doing is 8.75. Remember, sorry, 8.75. Remember, 0.35, 3/4 inch is 0.75 plus another 8.75. So the overall neckline is 17.5 inches. But when we are drafting, we are going to put it on fold, and then we will be working with this neck size. I hope you got that clear. Okay, so let me go ahead and use a white paper so that we can see clearly. So I'm going to fold this paper into now. This paper is folded, as you can see. It is folded in half. Let me fold it. It is what I'm going to be using to draft my collar. Now, the neck size that we are working with is 8.3, 8 3/4. So let me keep a margin so that we don't start from the very edge. Okay, so let that be our reference line. So from from the fold line here, I'm going to be measuring 8.8 3/4. 8 3/4 is here. So I'll go ahead on this line and mark my 8 3/4. So this is 8 3/4. So I'm going to mark it across 8 3/4. Sorry, 8¾ is here. Then I'll roll a line across. That is the size of our neckline. Okay, so this is our center back. I'm going to be using CB. That is the center back, and this point is the center front. Let me write it somewhere here. I don't want it to obstruct. That is our center front. Now, having done that, the next thing that we are going to determine is, you know, the collar is made up of the collar stand and the fall. So we are going to call this point 1 and call this point 2. Point 1 and point 2. Okay, point 1 signifies our center front and point 2 signifies our center back. So we are going to divide, we are going to find 3/4 of this length and call it point 3. 3/4, that is dividing this length of the neck size into 3, into 4, and then marking the third portion and calling it point 3. What do I mean? Remember that our neckline was 8.75. That's the size of the neckline. We want to find 3/4 of this neck size. Now, how do we do that? You're going to say 3 divided by 4 gives us 0.75. Now 0.75 multiplied by the size of the neckline, which is 8.75. What does it give us? 6.5. No, 6.5. For the sake of clarity, we are going to leave it there. We are not going to have to move this decimal point, no, round it up. No, if you round it up, it's going to, so 6.2, 6.5. So I come to this line and I measure 6.5. This is where 6.5 is. That is where 6.5 is. So I'm going to call that point 0.3. This is 0.3. Please, I hope we are getting that. Okay. Now, the next thing that you are going to be doing is to give your collar stand the height that you want it to be. So we will be working with 1 inch. Okay, let's use 1.5. So 1.5. 1.5. So we are going to rule a line across that. We are first and foremost wanting to draft we are showing you the depth of the collar stand. So we'll go ahead and call this point 4 and call this other point 5. There is a reason why I am giving all these points. You will see it as we go along. So 1 to 4 is actually the depth of our collar stand. Now we are going to give the depth of our collar 4. So the next thing that you are going to do is from point 4. From point 4, we are going to use a height of about 2.5. Let's use 2.5. So you, from 4, you go up by 2.5 inches. And then from 5, you go up by 2.5 inches. And then you roll the line across. You square the line. That's what I'm trying to do here. Please just follow it step by step. You will understand. So this point, we call it 0.6. And then this point, we call it 0.7. I hope we understand that. Now, the next thing that we are going to be doing is that we are going to mark 0.3 upwards to line 6 and 7. So I come to line 3. I'm going to be marking it in broken line upwards. And then I will call this point, point 8. Let me call it point 8. Okay. Watch the video over and over. You are going to understand. Now, the next thing that I'm going to be doing is I will come to point on line 2 to 5. I'm going to go up that line from point 2 by 0.25. 0.25. That is where 0.25 is. I came up from this point 2. I went up here by 0.25. Now I'm going to connect. Let me call this point point 9. Point 9. So I'm going to connect point 3 to point 9, and then I will come out of the pattern by the size of the button wrap. Remember, the button wrap we worked on was 1 and 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to connect point 3 through to point 9, and then I'll come out of this pattern on a slight curve by the value of our button wrap. So this is it. Just follow it, you are going to get it. That is what. So I'm going to measure from point 9. The value of our button wrap was 1 inch and 1/8 inch. So it is here. That is the point of our button wrap. So I'm going to call that point 10. Remember what I said the button wrap is. The size of this portion that you have marked for your button, that is the button wrap. So whatever it gives you from your connection here, extend it out of the pattern by that value. Okay. Now the next thing that we are going to do is that on point 5, you are going to go into this pattern. On point 5, look at where point 5 is. You are going to go in towards point 4 by 0.5 inch. So look at where point 5 is. I'm going in 0.5 inch. 0.5. And I'm going to call that point 11. I'm indicating them by name so that you will understand. So the next thing that you're going to do is you are going to connect point 11 to point 5 to point 10. Look at what I'm going to do now. I'm bringing in the curved part of my ruler to do that. So I'm connecting. This is already connected here. So I'm going to be flipping that to here to give me that shape that we usually have at the front collar. I hope we are seeing it. I have to blend here so that it can be nicer. So look at it. Okay. So we have already designed our collar stand now. So the next thing that we are going to do is to draft our collar 4. So what we are going to do now is from point 11, we are going to go out towards point 7 by the size of the fall you want. By the size of the fall you want. So we are coming here we are going to use about let's use 3 inches. Remember that all this is dependent on what you want. Okay, let's use 3.5. It's dependent on your design. Both the size of your collar stand and the size of your fall is dependent on what you want. So I am ruling it, connecting point 11 through maybe about half the line out of the pattern like that. Let me use a marker so that. So we will call that point 12. Our collar is almost set. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to connect point 12 to point 8 and blend it into as if you are going towards 6. So I'm using a slight curve. So I'm blending that into the line. Voila. Oh, that didn't show. Let me make it well. So I'm blending that into the line. Our collar is set. So you can see from this draft that this is a cut together collar. It is a cut together collar. So you find out that 1, 4, taking to 3, 10, 9, 11. 11 is our collar stand. Then point 11, 12, 8, 6 to 4 is our collar 4. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this and show you. This is a cut together collar. Should you want to make it a separate collar, just hang in. I'm going to show you. Pause. Okay, let me go ahead and cut it while you watch. So I'm cutting through. I'm cutting through as we drafted so that you can see it. So that is our collar. By the time you open it, this is what you have for your shirt collar. So if we bring it along the way it was, this is what we drafted. In our next tutorial, we are going to show you how to sew this into your and then form your collar. I hope you can see. Hope you can see. So if you want to, but by the time you finish sewing it, we'll be achieving something like this. So this becomes the stand, and then this becomes the fall. Okay, before we go ahead to sew, put it on the fabric, and so I'm going to show you something. Should you want to make it a separate collar, you want the collar to be separate, because this, what I showed you, is a cut together collar. If you want the stand to be separate and you want the collar to be separate, supposing you want to use different fabrics, what you will just do is from point 4, go up this line by 0.5. I hope we are seeing by 0.5, and connect from that point into this point, and on a curve, the way I'm going to show you. On a mild curve. I don't want something sharp. Okay, I think that is okay. We are going to have something like this. So I will go ahead and cut this and separate so that you will get. And then I'll cut that in. Is to give it some shape. So as a cut together separate collar, this is what it's going to be like. The stand is separated from the collar. Now in our future videos, we are going to show you how to sew this up in your block, and because there are technicalities on how you sew the shirt collar. Just watch out on this channel, you are going to see the sewing part of the video. If this tutorial was helpful to you, please subscribe to our channel, turn on the notification bell so that when we upload later videos, you will be updated. And also like the button, share, and comment. Thank you very much. Bye.